Counter-Narrative News brings you a report on the historic launch of the Jessica Huntley Community Garden in West London in W13. After 3 years of constant planning, strategizing and pushing by coordinators of the project, primarily Eric Huntley and Amarjit Chandan, with support from many others in the community, saw the Jessica Huntley Community Garden, short named the Huntley Garden, successfully launch on May the 1st, 2023, in what attendees called a beautiful and fitting tribute to the many grassroots legacies and works of Jessica and Eric Huntley and their wider political, social and cultural community. Indeed, Jessica and Eric's daughter, Akebra, mentioned that the attendees experienced the event like it was part of the historic, radical, black and third world international book fairs, which the Huntleys, along with New Beacon Press and many other partners at the grassroots, delivered from the early 80s into the early 90s. It was a global, multicultural, radical grassroots event that took place, so that's a beautiful tribute and review. Thank you. Well over 100 attendees were at the launch of all generations, from babes in arms to young children, youth, parents, grandparents and great-grandparents. All in attendance, everyone had a direct role to play in the event. At 2 p.m, just 1 hour before the actual start, the skies opened up with a decent amount of rainfall. Climate change, of course, is making our country drier and drier with water scarcity, so the precipitation was welcome in a sense, but it would have been nice to have some sunshine for the opening of the garden itself by St. James's Church on Leland Terrace in West Ealing. And fate would have it, the clouds broke open, the blue skies and the sunshine shone through by just after the time of the launch, between 3 and 3:30 p.m. At 3 p.m, people gathered, making a crowd of up to 70 attendees to conduct the first planting on the site in a collective planting activity in which Eric Huntley led and concluded with a planting of 2 grapevines that will grow towards each other and form a united vine, a metaphor for Jessica and Eric Huntley. Indeed, it was a day of countless metaphors. People of all ages planted together: roses, nasturtiums, marigolds, daffodils, bluebells, bulbs, sunflowers, beans, currants, and many other bulbs, cuttings and seeds were planted into the ground. The collective planting on the community garden was an important site in the community, bringing veterans of the grassroots with the youth and children into the centre ground of our community, taking responsibility of a public space to conduct our own International Day of the Working Classes on 1st of May and our own grassroots spring activity. Eric Huntley's feet firmly pressed the compost into the ground, connecting the soil closely with the roots of the 2 grape plants. Eric Huntley is 93 years old, but he did that with such strength and determination and love that the years just dropped off him, as you can see. We received a 3-ton bag of compost courtesy of Jan Anderson from Ealing Council, and Head of Resident Engagement Gofi Nyama was in attendance from Ealing Council also. The site was kindly prepared by one of our community partners of the project, Paul, our neighbour, on Caldershall Road, and with support from his landscape company, Stanton Landscapes. It was Eric's idea that we should do a ribbon cutting ceremony with the Pan-Africanist colours of red, green and gold. The ribbon ceremony was conducted by the hands of Eric Huntley and Amarjit Chandan, but guided by the youngest children in attendance. In a day of so many metaphors, Eric and I held a children's hands with somewhat the dull scissors, guiding the process until the ribbons were finally cut. It was a wonderful intergenerational moment of cooperation, whereby the tools, as they are in life and struggle, aren't always the best and ideal, but it's the unity through which working through the challenges that makes the result that much more connected and meaningful. As Professor Gus John walked towards our planting activity as he joined us, he was received with a ripple of applause. Professor Gus, like Jessica and Eric and others in attendance, is 6 decades deep in advocating for the black grassroots communities in this country and globally on issues including racism in education and policing and colonialism. Eric said a few words to formally inaugurate the community garden at around 3:30 p.m. We went into the Set Art Project space a few meters away on the High Street at 105 the Broadway. Kindly, the space was facilitated for free by the Art Project. Many thanks, Josh and Ellie. The attendees at this section of the event were comprised for around 60 to 70% family and comrades of the Huntleys, and the rest were attendees from across the country. A large contingent came from Oxford, many thanks to the Malcolm X movement in Oxford and the Oxford Community Action, and many local people of all ages. Sukant Chandan hosted the event, introducing the section for the short speeches, explaining to the packed hall that the launch of the Huntley Garden is the result of 3 years, at least 3 years of planning. That having moved to West Ealing, the last years of primary school in 91, the year the Walter Rodney bookshop run by the Huntleys closed on Chigwell Place, mine and subsequent generation in the area in West Ealing had no observable manifestation of the prolific and pioneering work of the Huntleys in W13, and no organisations and projects directly connected to the work of the Huntleys to get involved in for my generation and younger generations. After the launch of the Malcolm X movement in 2014-2015, in 2015 with a big national tour and festival, we partly model our events on the Black and Radical book fairs that started in 82 until the early 90s. Just that the Malcolm X movement often added a sound system culture music section component to that model of the book fair. In 2011, I attended the Huntley event at the Victoria and Albert Museum with Keith Waith performing his flute, the Guyanese heritage, amazing musician, and Jamaica's amazing Valerie Bloom reciting her utterly delightful poetry at the venue. It was the first time I directly had any connection and experience with the Huntleys. In 2014, I attended the Huntley Archive event at the London Metropolitan Archives in Farringdon. Jessica Huntley passes away a year earlier in 2013. In 2015, I meet the close comrades of the Huntleys, Keith Waith, face to face at a cafe on Northfields Avenue, having followed his amazing music for decades, having a CD of the Makuzi Players, and having seen him live previously. In 2017, the Malcolm X movement delivers an event at the annual Anarchist Book Fair in Liverpool Street with Eric Huntley and also the founder of the pioneering Hansib publishers, Arif Ali, both on the panel. By the time of the first lockdown around the COVID pandemic in 2020, council estate residents and I were involved in grassroots community food growing projects on council estates in Lambeth and the wider black-led grassroots organising on estates, as the black youth took the leadership in that restive summer of resistance around George Floyd's horrific martyrdom and police killing. The black resistance was tearing down colonial symbols that summer, and the black youth on council estates resisted a spike in police harassment and brutality, often facing riot police incursions onto their estates, and the self-defense clashes, pushing that back also on BLM protests with violent policing and the organised far right in Whitehall, Parliament Square and Trafalgar Squares, culminating in the historic victory against the far right on June the 13th in an act of black-led radical black power resistance that day, in which the Malcolm X movement was a small but important leading part. After discussing with Eric sometime in early 2021 or late 2020, we agreed that Leland Terrace would be a good location for a community garden in honour of Jessica. Eric was also keen that the small concrete square on the pedestrianised section of St. James's Avenue by 105 the Broadway should be used as a place to hold community events outdoors. In February 2021, I emailed our local MP, Rupa Huck, with a community garden idea. Her first response to the email was to say it was a quote-unquote an inspired idea, and she was positive and supportive from the get-go. One is no supporter of the Labour Party, but these are the facts. Rupa contacted Ealing Council to facilitate access to the space, and after consistent pushing and gentle pressing, the idea bloomed and has come to this initial fruition on 1st of May 2023. After my introduction, Eric Huntley was one of the two special guest speakers. Eric made a wonderful contribution, very much his style, of, on the one hand, ensuring the correct and full historical context were conveyed, along with his sensitive and poetic touches. To quote, "It is perhaps no accident that the space chosen for the garden is across the road from the bookshop where much of her activities took place, including Sainsbury's. Herself and her friends would visit and fill their shopping bags with South African goods from Sainsbury's, go to the cashier and innocently declared that they were boycotting goods because of its policy of apartheid, and deposited the basket on the counter, holding up the queue in the process. The St. James's Church Hall was booked for social gatherings attended and organised by her, including one of the first meetings which opened the nationwide campaign to expose the manner in which the police use sus law to criminalise black youth. Jessica organised a karate club in the church hall under the tutorship of Ferris and Hamza, which soon attracted both young and not so young, and from far and wide. Her particular concern was education of our youth and the practice of dumping them in schools for the educationally, in inverted commas, subnormal, leading her to become a founder of the supplementary school movement as well as teaching. The Peter Moses School was held at the Ealing Technical College in St. Mary's Road. She also taught at the Caribbean Parents Group organised by Edna and Willis Wilkie. She served on the board of Inkalab Housing Association based in Southall. The youth were always on her mind, leading her to organise a weekend conference in Acton entitled Young People Talking to Young People, with the older generation acting as facilitators. The opening of the bookshop in 1974, that's the Walter Rodney bookshop, brought with its own visitors. The publishing could have been done in Timbuktu. However, she was what I'd call a people's person, a doer. Ealing during the 70s was a desert, only waiting for a person like Jessica to explore. People came to the bookshop and inquired about jobs, accommodation, and to the recent news about various homelands, to complain about the behaviour of the police. She knew which lawyers to recommend. It was also virtually an advice centre. This is a potted history of her life with us. Long may she live spiritually with us. End of quote. So much inspiring experiences and lessons and histories to give us determination to serve the grassroots going forward. Dr. Rupa Huq MP spoke too at the launch event, and her support to the Huntley Garden was warmly received by the attendees. Our friend and community partner Sia from the Afghan Peace Library said a few words in support. She has also been a part of projects with Eric Huntley locally in schools. Josh from the Set Art Project, who kindly gave their space free to us for the event, spoke in support at our events. We have to give a big thanks to Josh and Asia for their hard work on the day of the launch, and thanks also to Ellie from Set for the support and solidarity. Local councillor and Local Children's Project WAPI founder, Councillor Grace Akuba, performed a wonderful poem inspired by the Huntleys. Another local councillor, this time from North London Seven Sisters, Michelle Simmons-Sappho, spoke of the importance of the leadership of black women in our grassroots movements, quoting Malcolm X, "If you educate the women, you educate the nation." Nigel Carter from the Oxford Community Action Group, and a veteran of Hansard Publishers, amongst other things, made a brilliant speech bringing a strong Caribbean-centric, Pan-Africanist political cultural analysis to the event. We have to thank Ken Ferro also, who was in the room from the United Friends and Family campaign around deaths by police, and also part of Migrant Media with Tariq Mahmood, who was a part of the Bradford 12. We also have to thank the formidable Arnie from the London Black Revolutionaries, or London Black Revs, who was in attendance, a courageous and strategic leader of the radical grassroots youth, especially in the period 2013 to 2017. Arnie was very much represented head and shoulders above everyone else in this period. A beautiful black power, radical socialist grassroots movement of the youth that confronted the authorities time and time again on issues of police killing, racist police killings and other issues. Many thanks to Brother Omawale, who brought his djembe and had a wonderful jam, more on that later, and brought comrades from the movement of the people from Nigeria, which is Sean Kuti's movement today, which is a re-establishment itself of the original movement of people of the legendary Fela Kuti. Salutations. Caldershore Road resident Amarjit Chandan, world-renowned Punjabi poet, veteran, political figure and researcher, who happens to be my father, was also in attendance. Pioneering black writer and publisher Margaret Busby was also in the room with us. Wonderful. The local migrant-led West Ealing Green Space Community Garden project on Seaford Road have been a local support and inspiration to us. Many thanks for their support and attendance at our launch. Many thanks to all the volunteers, especially the team of Malcolm X Movement volunteers on the day, who ensured everything ran on time and professionally. Professor Gus John was the last feature in the speeches section of the event, giving a very warmly received short lecture on the histories of the struggles against racism in the immigration regime, education and policing. Comrade Janaya from South London, as the artist Sense completed this section of the event with 2 combined a cappellas which lyrically explored the themes of alienation, oppression, challenges born out of the colonial and capitalist system. We served the curry chicken, aromatic basmati rice, dal, and a raita salad that I prepared at home for everyone, which was served and eaten while the wonderful True Steel Pan Band played live from 5:30 p.m. to 6 p.m. Wonderful, wonderful component. Many thanks, True Steel Pan Band. Please find them on Instagram. People expressed thanks and appreciation for the delicious nourishment of the pans and the warm food provided. From 6 to 9 p.m. was the live music sound system section of the event, an ensemble comprising world-class tabla player Arif Dervish, who also grew up locally, Guyanese heritage and former Guyana artist in state, flautist Keith Waith, brother Tuup on percussion and brother Omawale on the djembe, and they smashed it with their jam, and what a jam it was. Keith Waith leading in his unmistakably Guyanese-inspired style, bringing the sonic sounds of the tropical rainforests with the rolling and slamming beats of Arif Dervish's tabla, brother Omawale's djembe, and brother Tuup on percussion. We have to give a great thanks to original reggae sound system brother man Father Chalky, who brought his sound system, provided it just as in an act of solidarity, and many thanks to Stanton Landscapes in this regard. As original junglist badman DJ Garvin Dan took to the turntables to smash out an amazing garage and then jungle set, with MC Rebel Bass combining a back-to-back dynamic of his junglist MCing with the reggae chat-down style of Chalky. The Jamaican originating grassroots sound system culture of reggae, ragga, jungle, garage and grime was in full representation at this event. Jashaka, Skibber, MC Fats, who have all passed away recently, were given honour and respect, as was through the mic all the communities of resistance across London, Broadwater Farm Estate, Tower Hamlets, Bethnal Green, Whitechapel, Brixton, Peckham, Notting Hill, Ladbroke Grove, St Paul's in Bristol, Handsworth and Birmingham. They were all given their due respect and their big ups, as we say. It was all a fitting celebratory end to a wonderful and important historic day. The first step, and as well as an addition, a step in a long journey in an interwoven story of stories. Those like Jessica Huntley, who are committed to the heart and soul of bringing relief, resistance, and a liberation-oriented growing representation to the grassroots. As we look forward, we are involving more and more local residents to the actual growing on the site of the Huntley Garden. And at the event, towards the end, there was already talk of what's going to be the next public event of the Huntley Garden project, or perhaps an outdoor summer festival type event on St James's Square. Our proverbial garden gates are always open.